Got it.
In the Torah, when we hear ayeka, often the response is hineni, that I'm here. So as we think about starting this journey, which I'm honored to kick off with some music, just thinking about where in the story we are of all the things, climate justice, Jews, progress, humanity, everything.
Great.
Ayeka, hineni, 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 beginning, middle, or at the end. Where are you in the story, my friend? Beginning, middle, or at the end? Where are we in the story again? Na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na, na na na, na 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 na, na 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 na, na 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 na, na na na. So we're at the very beginning, and this song actually has some body percussion to it. So I'm going to teach that briefly, because the cool thing about body percussion is that it's the first instrument that we ever had, right? Our mouths and our bodies. So the body percussion sequence is a clap, and then you tap your chest twice. So
Okay.
this is a good thing for us to do as climate activists, to get into our bodies and embody right now, right? So clap, then we hit our chest twice. So clap, chest, chest, not too hard. Clap, chest, chest. Clap, chest, chest. Then we're going to do, this is actually called a patch in body percussion. Patch, patch. You tap your each side of your legs. Patch, patch, and then stomp, stomp. So if you don't get those parts, you can just do the clap, chest, chest. But I'll kind of say what it is. So it's clap, chest, chest. Clap, chest, chest. Clap, chest, chest. Legs, legs, stomp, stomp. Clap, chest, chest.
Everybody got
Clap,
that?
chest, clap, chest, chest, legs, legs, stomp, stomp. Clap, chest, chest, clap, chest, chest, clap, chest, chest, legs, legs, stomp, stomp. One more time. Clap, chest, chest, clap, you got it. Clap, chest, chest, legs, legs, stomp, stomp. So if we were all together, not on Zoom, you would keep that going, and you would be the band keeping the beat, the percussion section. But you can keep it going there too. You can do this part or any part, or you can just groove like you were doing. But I wanted to make sure you got the full Ayeka song experience of the body
And
percussion.
we need to explain Ayeka means, where are you? God
Thank
is
you.
asking Adam in the book of Genesis, where are you? And he doesn't say Hineni, right? But we can say Hineni, which is, here I am. I'm stepping up to do this task. All right, let's go.
Where are we in the story again? Na 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 na, na 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 na. Good clapping. Na na, na na na. That would be clap and clap. Na na. Great. Just improvise. It looks great. לחיים, לטובה, לברכה או שלום, לחיים, לאלה שעובדים קשה כל יום, לחיים, בסוף, באמצע או בהתחלה, איפה אנחנו בתוך העלילה, נה 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 נה. That's great. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. L'chaim, to the stories that lift us high. L'chaim, to the stories that open our eyes. L'chaim, to the storytellers singing their song, and to the listener cheering them on. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. middle, or at the end. Where are we in the story again? Na 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 na. You look so good. Na 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 na. So you're gonna bring us out. Ayaka hineni 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 ayaka hineni 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 ayaka hineni 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 ayaka hineni hineni hineni. So I'm just gonna play guitar for a second and let us all look around. I know I'm in the presence of some really incredible people here who are doing the critical work of our time. So I'm just going to keep the rhythm. We can look around, see the rhythms that you're keeping, and see all the hinenis, all the here I ams that you're saying when all of the holy ayekas, the where are yous, are being asked. You are the ones answering the call. So you can look all around and see who we all are here together. And we'll do it one more time. You look so great. You've got the rhythms going and you're doing the work. And it's just an honor to be able to add music. Ayaka, hineni, 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 ayaka, hineni, 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 ayaka, hineni, 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 ayaka, hineni, 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 hineni.
Great. That was a great opening. What a beautiful way to open this tonight's program, which is a little different than our usual meeting. We open with the gift of music by Hannah Rothman, a Philadelphia-based singer, songwriter, musical community organizer, and educator. And tonight we're going to have some fun, hear some beautiful music, and have a great speaker, recognize you and your work. And if you wish to stay on after, you can make some calls with Mirala, is going to lead calls to Congress on the Build Back Better bill. So welcome to a gathering of gratitude for a year of really hard work. I could see you all smiling. That was really great, Kana, to get people going after a year of a lot of hard work. Welcome. Thank you to all of you activists, allies who devote yourselves to a greater purpose, to build a better, cleaner, more just world, building relationships with our congressional representatives and through texts, sacred texts, and also cell phone texts, phone calls, demonstrations, banner making, and shofar blowing, and yes, letter writing, to amplify the Jewish voice demanding comprehensive, just, and bold climatic legislation on Capitol Hill. It's the Hebrew month of Kislev, and the moon is waxing to full, and then it will wane to Hanukkah. Wow, Hanukkah, the Sunday of Thanksgiving. It's perfect. Never too early, never too late. It's just perfect. And this year, in the sabbatical year, when we are thinking about all of the things that we can cut back on to simplify our life, I'm really getting into 1 day's worth of oil lasting 8 days as a miracle. That's a real reduction of 88% reduction in oil consumption. And this is a holiday from 2000 years ago plus. How about we start our meeting? While we're in such a rhythmic mood, why doesn't everybody unmute and say Happy Hanukkah to everybody? Maybe look at one person in one screen and see their name and wish them a Happy Hanukkah. So can we unmute everybody? All right.
And a lunar eclipse.
The Hebrew word for gratitude, it's not a word, it's a phrase. Hakarat hatov. It means recognizing the good. So come what may, recognizing the blessings in what we receive, being grateful for it, come what may. We want to recognize all of you tonight for your good and hard work and how you inspire each other, and how in only 2.5 years I still don't believe that. 1.5 of which was a pandemic. We have made a difference, changing minds on Capitol Hill, getting members to co-sponsor, to rethink their votes, to be bold, and for Jewish organizations to push climate from the basement to the top of their agendas. You have done all that. So we want to thank everyone here and your groups that you represent, and we want to recognize our constant and consistent partners and a few unsung heroes as representatives of all of you. So I'm going to ask 2 of our steering committee members, Ed Kopp and Dee Herman, to join together to present our paper plate awards. Ed and Dee.
So I'm going to keep Dee's picture up there on the screen because she's going to actually show you the physical paper plate awards. I do want to apologize in advance if I get anyone's names pronounced incorrectly. Tell me if I do. We all want to call each other by the proper name.
And I hope that I got everybody's spelling correct. And if
that too.
I apologize in advance.
This is the first annual award show for Jewish Earth Alliance.
Right.
So it's entirely possible there'll be some technical slip up. So excuse us for that. I do want to mention, as we recognize the first number of people who, all of whom are many of whom are what we now call aggregators. We've got 34 different people who aggregate letters. Now there's some of them who aggregate them from themselves and others who aggregate them from all over their state or region. But they've been very effective. We've sent 1,000 letters in the last 6 months, roughly speaking. I think we should dig in and recognize our aggregators as well as some of our outstanding letter writers. So Dee, it's up to you. So the first award is.
I better take myself off of the blur mode.
Yes.
Okay. There's our first technical difficulty.
There we go. None. I'm trying to get none here. Oh.
Let me know if you need background music.
Looks
Oh,
like
good,
none.
good. Okay.
So the first award is presented, the first paper plate award, they look like high quality plates, is presented to Maddie Hershon, our super duper organizer. And let me tell you a little bit about Maddie, and also, well, the second award, maybe we could do these both at the same time. The second award goes to Diane Logumsky, who is Diane and Maddie are both on our Indiana team. Maddie has organized a statewide program, including not just Jewish folks, but on an interfaith basis, and regularly sends dozens of letters from this collective effort. And among those letters are outstanding letters from Diane. So we want to thank them both, and do not withhold your applause.
Woo!
The next, another statewide effort. This is Phyllis Blumberg, and also from Pennsylvania. We'll describe this effort in detail. The next one.
Where's Phyllis?
And Sandy, I was thinking of you when I said correctly. Sandy Chukroon.
Chukroon, you got it.
Chukroon, thank you very much. Both of whom are from my native state, Pennsylvania. Phyllis has been the founder of the All Pennsylvania Jewish Earth Alliance, created an outstanding partnership with Pennsylvania Interfaith Power and Light. And she gets a Founders Award and reliably produces many letters every month. And Sandy gets our Citizen Lobbyist Award. So let's hear it for them. Yay. Our next set, and this is the last set for this part of the program, Larry Plotkin, who is from Corvallis, Oregon, and let's look at the other Oregon awards as well. Joni Plotkin, I recognize that last name. And Ken Winograd. They are all, as I said, from Oregon, and Larry coordinates and founded the letter writing effort there, primarily from Bethlehem, I think. Both Joni and Ken are recipients of the Citizen Lobbyist Award for their dedicated lobbying letter writing. And I should mention that as a result of all of these efforts, they have built, both on the basis of existing relationships and these efforts, a very strong relationship with the Office of Congressman Pete DeFazio, who is an important player on these issues. So they deserve a round of applause. And I know you all want to continue with this now, but you're going to have to wait for the remaining awards until later in the program. So I have one more recognition to make at this point, and that's for Dee Herman, who put these wonderful awards, created them, and they will be distributed on some basis to the recipients.
Great. Thank you, Ed and Dee, for all that effort. That's great. There is a question whether they're recyclable plates, but we'll discuss that later. Oh, thank good. Okay, great. Great, terrific. Thank you all. And now it's my honor and privilege to introduce our speaker for tonight. Joel Clement is a senior fellow at Harvard Kennedy School Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs. Joel demonstrated his courage at the US Department of the Interior as a whistleblower in 2017 and was reassigned and exiled from Washington, DC. Now he is the public face of the Union of Concerned Scientists Science Protection Project, through which federal scientists may confidentially report political interference in government science. So welcome to you, Joel. Thank you so much for coming this evening.
Thanks so much. Delighted to be here.
Great.
But how do I follow up on dancing though?
There, you'll get another chance at the end, I think.
It's just a tough act to follow.
Oh, I don't know. You're pretty courageous.
Well,
Different kinds of courage, right?
Yeah. Yes. Hineni. And thanks, Diana. And I'm delighted to be here, and what a fantastic group. You know, anytime a Zoom call starts and you don't just see heads sitting right in the middle of the picture, not moving. Instead, they're swaying around and clapping. That's probably the best Zoom call I've ever been on. So thanks for that. That's pretty fantastic. I think, you know, I don't want to, I'll maybe time myself a little bit because I want to make sure we have time for questions. So I'll tell a little bit about kind of the story, the whistleblower story, and how that all goes, and how it may go in the future as well, where I've landed here at Harvard and with the Union of Concerned Scientists, and then maybe just talk a little bit about transformation and some of the things that I think Congress needs to hear, and could kind of work their way into some of the things that you all do as organizers. I'm just really inspired with the work you guys are doing, and it's fun to hear about the energy behind that. So before I even start, I want to say thank you for all that you're all doing. What a neat group. And thanks for doing it with joy and enthusiasm and music and dance. So that's just super. And I was at Interior. I was in Seattle for a long time, and I was working at a private foundation out there. But when Obama was elected, I moved out to DC, and I was hired to direct the policy office at the Interior Department. And as part of that came all of the the Interior Department is this very large, sprawling agency with all these bureaus, you know, the National Park Service and Fish and Wildlife Service, the Bureau of Land Management, USGS, the U.S. Geological Survey, Bureau of Indian Affairs, just a ton of bureaus, and all the offshore leasing bureaus and so on. So the policy office was responsible for working on those issues that cross-cut all the bureaus. And one of those, of course, is climate change. And so as kind of the climate change coordinator for the Interior back then, I was generally on the front lines and representing the agency as we would meet with some of the other interagency bodies and meet over at CEQ in the White House, and got to know kind of the crew of people who were eager to make things happen on climate change in the Obama administration. And one of the issues that I spent quite a lot of time on were Arctic issues, because the Arctic is warming faster than anywhere else on Earth. And at this point, it's 3 times faster than anywhere else on Earth. And there are 4 million people that live in the Arctic. There's a tremendous transformation taking place up there. So another very important area of coordination for us. And when the Trump administration won, I think, as in the election, and I think surprised themselves, they weren't too prepared for what was coming and how to govern and so on. But I was pretty certain things wouldn't go well for climate change. I think we all knew that. The question was, would it affect the work on climate change adaptation? Would it affect how we were treating those who were at risk, whose lives, homes, infrastructure, and so on were at risk in the Arctic? So I was spending quite a lot of time talking about that, and I was very public about it, even though they had come into office now. And I'd spoken at the UN in June, so it's 6 months after they came in. And it was right after that, a week later, that they sent out their first round and said, a few dozen people are going to be reassigned. Now, I got a letter that said, and it was to give you some insight into the intellectual depth of this crowd. It said, since you as a senior executive, you can be moved around. And we all know that senior executive service, that's what we're for. We can be moved around as expertise is needed. This letter said, well, you have economists on your staff, so you know about numbers. So we think we're going to move you to the accounting office that collects the checks from the oil and gas industry. And it was a clear dig. They knew I was the climate change guy, and they knew that would be the last place that I would do any good. And I was one of many. They reassigned dozens that night, and actually 30% of those who were reassigned were Native Americans. So there was clear discriminatory impact and clear disregard for process. There was no money saving. They were going to move people all over the country and blow a lot of money. So it was clearly a political move. So I sought help and legal counsel and got to know what the Whistleblower Protection Act is all about. And as I and legal counsel understood it, that by reassigning me and kind of disassembling the whole project focused on coordinating on behalf of Alaska Natives in the Arctic, we're putting Americans at risk. And that's a very clear line under which you can blow the whistle and lodge a complaint. So I did, but my lawyer hated this, but I also, when I lodged the complaint, I published an op-ed in the Washington Post and called them out for their disregard for climate change in general, Alaska Natives and Indigenous people, and for just poor process and treating government as something that they wanted to break rather than something that was there to solve problems with. So I was pretty vocal about it. And of course, that led to some media, and there was a lot of coverage of this because I was the first of what are now, we had a lot more whistleblowers, but I was the first. And I think the media was eager to find out, what was this going to be a trend? I wish it had been more of a trend, but, people did what they could. But that led to enough of a to-do that eventually, it wasn't particularly comfortable being there at the Interior Department. And though Diana said I went into exile, I resigned a couple months later in order to keep my voice. It was clear they wanted to shut me down, and I was being very vocal, and I'm kind of a problem that way. And so I ended up resigning and spending some time just writing and doing the media work before Harvard tapped me to come here and continue the work that we were doing on Arctic resilience. And on kind of as a side hustle, the Union of Concerned Scientists brought me on as a senior fellow also to as Diana described, kind of lead that science protection effort and to advance what we call scientific integrity. And that's not about the integrity of the science. It's about politicization of science. It's about political interference in science. Can you keep that that scientific work separate from politics in order to inform policy in the way it's supposed to? And so we spent a lot of time over the coming year and a half or so. We wrote a report on the Interior Department and all of the things that they did to break down scientific integrity, all the ways in which they violated, the ways they treated scientists at USGS, the ways they were chilling the scientific community within their agency, and they were shutting down advisory committees and all these things. It was a very long list. It was not a short report, unfortunately. Excuse me. And so we had plenty to write about. The secretary, Ryan Zinke, was a bit of a disaster for the agency. But again, in some ways they succeeded by hiring these buffoons, because the goal was to break the agency and to make sure it couldn't address things like climate change, these things that are very clearly threatening the American economy and way of life. So, they weren't too discriminating on who they hired in there. And in the Arctic, they replaced some very high qualified people. I just did a podcast last week on this. The Arctic Research Commission, who Diana's husband Fred knows all about, they replaced some very high qualified people, Arctic experts, scientists, with campaign aides that needed a job. I think they were realizing these Trump people were not getting jobs outside of government, so they would find a place to plunk them and try and gum up the works that way. So that was kind of the MO, right? Was to just gum up the works, pull expertise out of anywhere where they could influence policy, and diminish the effect of science in governing and in policy. And so plenty to talk about during those years, but of course, now things have changed, and in some ways, a lot of that is bouncing back. I was brought to Harvard by John Holdren, and he was President Obama's science advisor, and he has been following all of this very closely. And he's the one that said, continue the work that you were doing. You can do it from Harvard. And he was right. And it's been fantastic. And meanwhile, we're starting to see a bounce back in the Biden administration. They just replaced all those buffoons on the Arctic Research Commission with really good people. And they've just reestablished this Arctic Executive Steering Committee at the White House that was designed to help agencies coordinate around all this climate change and cultural impacts in the Arctic. And of course, they've brought people back at EPA to be on the federal advisory committees. So we're seeing it really was difficult over those 3 years to always be a bearer of bad news. And it's nice now to occasionally have some good things to say. And it's been just wonderful to see some good people back in positions of influence, particularly among the science folks. So that's worked out well. UCS has, Union of Concerned Scientists was pretty busy for a few years there. But at the same time, there were some representatives on the Hill who were also busy with that scientific integrity issue. And so the Scientific Integrity Act was put forward, and it may be something that we can talk about it during the Q&A. But there are some ways to solidify and improve things like whistleblower protections, but also scientist protections and ways to keep politics out of science. So we can talk more about that if that's of interest to people at the end. But while this all has started to reverse, there was an awful lot of damage done to the federal scientific enterprise and the workforce primarily. So I think that's one of the things that I know on the Hill they're concerned about. I think on the appropriations, the House Appropriations Committee, there's been talk about this, and others. How do we get scientists back on the job? And there's an opportunity. Before COVID, I would speak at universities a lot, and the students always asked, what can I do in my career to be helpful? And I'm like, man, there's a gaping hole in the science personnel in the federal government right now, and an opportunity to hire young and energized new scientists coming into the field. And so I've been encouraging that. And I know on the Hill, they've been trying to figure out how to very quickly encourage hiring and maybe change some of the, let's just say, clunky hiring practices in the federal government to do that. So that's an encouraging sign as well. And the reason I the backdrop to all this is transformation. It's we're in the midst of a crisis, and the one thing I worry they don't quite understand fully on the Hill is the degree of urgency that we face with climate change. And this is where I get a little depressing. So sometimes I try to temper it, but it's an all hands on deck moment. This may not be what people would call a war footing, but it's a major crisis that's not being treated as such. It's being treated that way by the youth. And we're seeing immense energy coming from the youth, and it's inspiring. It's always the thing I say when people say, what gives you hope? Other than the dancing in the beginning of this Zoom call, which also does give me hope. It's the youth and what they're bringing to the game, but a lot of older folks don't have that. So, people my generation are not responding the way they should. But when I talk about transformation too, I'm talking about economic transformation, not just an energy transformation, social transformation, cultural transformation. White supremacy is not going to go easily, and that means that inequity and resistance to change are going to persist. And that's going to be a long fight. And that's a climate change fight. The impacts on biodiversity and on the natural systems, it's a growing and expanding economy, global economy. So that's not going to change easily. And that's a climate change issue. And of course, public health, the coronavirus, COVID, is very easily linked to climate change. It's these and the biodiversity crisis. It's these interfaces between human and natural systems that are going to give rise to these zoonotic diseases. So all of these crises overlap, and the transformation that's going to be required to overcome that is immense. And I know you all know that. And I think, Diana asked me, what are some of the things right now that Congress should hear? So I'll just say a few things, and then we can get to the Q&A, because I don't want to drone on too long here before we do that. But I know you've been talking about Build Back Better, and the way I see it, Build Back Better is fantastic, but it's not enough. And I think we're to separate it from the reconciliation process and that budget and that spending bill. It was certainly a tactic, but we can't let them just do Build Back Better. That budget reconciliation action is huge, and Build Back Better isn't a very strong climate action without it. It's something. It's certainly better than nothing, but and some really important things happening in there with infrastructure, but really without money and the budget that has its climate focus, it's going to be real hard for Build Back Better to carry all the water for the Biden administration on climate change. So I think that's something they need to hear. The other thing is, COP26, just wrapping up, it was only a success in that the coverage of the event focused on failure rather than success. The emptiness of the process was kind of exposed, and it was exposed by civil society and the youth and some very vocal people there in Glasgow. And in some ways, so the reason I think that this might be an opening is that I think it was the dramatic failure in Copenhagen that led to the dramatic success in Paris. And so my hope and my expectation, frankly, is that it doesn't take 6 years this time. Next year, this is going to be in Egypt, and then the year after it's in Dubai. So who knows what could happen? But I would expect we see major change after all the language and all the talk, finally including fossil fuels in the final document. The need to phase out fossil fuels and transition to renewable energy it couldn't be more important. And it's shocking that it took this long to get it into the UN document that comes out of these COP meetings. But you all know this. Congress, they don't decide to lead; they're compelled to lead, and only as a last resort sometimes. So maybe we shouldn't even say it's leadership, but it's on all of us to compel them to act. And as you write your letters to the Hill. I think the most important thing to try and communicate is the urgency of the climate crisis. Young people get it. Us olds don't get it as well, but everyone on this call certainly does. But there's a substantial transformation ahead. So with Congress, I've found, and I think the Biden administration has been doing this as well, is best to frame that transformation in the context of jobs, of GDP, of economic measures, because that's what they understand. And an energy transformation, for example, a real energy transformation would be a shot in the arm for the economy, and it would reduce all these costly externalities, the foul air and water and these degraded landscapes, and depending on foreign actors that are unreliable, that life, there are just, the externalities add up. And I think members of Congress get that if it's put in the context of their own state. So I think that's pretty compelling. I think that is a helpful way to go about it. This is probably not news to you guys. I think you've all been doing this so much now that I'm sure you're familiar with those approaches, but that's sort of, until we do the Q&A and we can bat around some ideas, that's sort of what I have for a strategic approach to the outreach that you guys all do so well.
Great. That's a great, well, it's both an introduction and a summary. So while people are thinking of questions, let me see who do we have who's got a question. Well, Larry Plotkin is asking, how do we break through the Fox News alternative universe that's piped into 50% of American homes? Is that true? 50%?
It's
Wow.
the most watched cable news, I think.
I've always wondered, though, is that because there's ABC, CBS, and MSNBC? On the progressive side, there are 6 stations and only really this one mainstream, but that's a whole other media question.
Yeah, because I actually don't think all those other stations are on the progressive side. They're just news.
Yeah, well,
and,
yes,
and Fox News is not. And I struggle with this even within my own family. My mom buys into that stuff, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because if you believe stuff and you watch it on cable news, then you're in for it. And a lot of people believe stuff. And I don't think people realize that that's not a news station at all.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I wish I had an answer to that one. I think there should be a law against misrepresenting your show as news.
I think there is.
There used to be.
There used to be. That's right. They got rid of it.
Yeah.
So Mirala is asking, what do we want from the administration now regarding drilling in the Arctic? And will Secretary Haaland make a difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, first of all, having Secretary Haaland there is hugely symbolic and important. To have an Indigenous woman leading that agency that was so responsible for such horrifying things in the early part of the history of this country, it's really transformative, and that's neat. And it's been giving tribal Indian country a voice that they didn't have before. So that's important. But in the Arctic, this is something I struggle with within the Biden administration. They have not been backing off leasing the way that they clearly must do in order to address the crisis that we know we're in. Now, I have some degree of sympathy for them, knowing how slow things move at Interior and how you have to do things by the book. If you don't do it by the book, then it'll get reversed right away by the next hostile administration. But at the same time, I don't know if there's time to play the usual games. And if there's a way, I think I certainly advocate for making permanent the moratorium on new leasing across the board. There's no point in leasing. They've already leased enough public lands to produce oil for decades. It's absurd now, and it's really just it's an industry issue. They have politicians who are bought and paid for, and they're going to go to the mat. So the more that they can hear that there's urgency here and that they need to stop doing this, I think that's really important. And it comes down to influencing individual lease sales, and they have to open those up for comment. And I think that's a good opportunity to weigh in and say, hang on, during a climate crisis, what on earth compels us to use our public lands for this purpose? It's counterintuitive and dangerous to Americans and the economy and so on. So yeah, I think that's a really important one. I think the Arctic is a poster child for that right now.
So do
Partly
we need,
because Lisa Murkowski is very powerful.
yeah. Do we need to follow those open meetings and go to them?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, a lot of that is submitting written comments.
Written comments, right?
Yeah, so usually it's the Bureau of Land Management, and they have to announce when the comment period is. It's usually 30 days, and you can submit written comments. And as you all know, I mean, those are ignored often, but they see the volume, and they see that, if they get a flood of those, it's a lot harder because that's public. That's public information, so it's a lot harder for them to brush them off. So I think it's a good tactic at the same time as a legislative or a congressional approach, right? To focus on members of Congress. The thing is, in Alaska, that's not going to get you very far,
Ed Kopf is asking, where are the administration's greatest blind spots on the environment?
I would say oil and gas. Let's see. I think they can, they've just announced today an executive order around recognizing indigenous traditional ecological knowledge, which is good. So they continue to beat the drum in the right way on relations with indigenous people, which I think is inherently an environment and conservation issue. But on oil and gas, I really think they're making a huge mistake by not coming out fast with an inspiring moratorium on oil and gas leasing. Frankly, they need to stop the drilling as well and the poking of those holes. But let's start with leasing. If we think that's politically hard, wait till we get to the part where they have to stop drilling, and permitting those drills. So, we'll see. Now, the trick, of course, is the just transition notion, how to make sure people are still made whole. There are a lot of people in New Mexico who depend on the fossil fuel industry, same thing in Alaska. And so there's got to be money coming from Congress to make those people whole, public money. But at the same time, leasing there's no one is depending on that because that won't happen for years. It takes a good 10 years to go from a lease sale to production. So, again, when it comes time to stop the drilling permits, that's when they need to, somehow we need to figure out how to make sure everybody stays whole. And I mean, the marginalized communities that depend on some of these incomes or cheap energy.
Yeah, West Virginia's definitely an issue.
Yeah, ironically, before the Trump administration came in, a lot of West Virginia coal miners were in training programs for renewable energy work and building turbines and installing solar panels and so on. And it was a very successful story. But as soon as Trump came in, he said, I'm bringing back coal. And they all quit those training programs.
Oh.
So, they shut down. And, I mean, it just, you guys know, it's offensive. They're trying to break things. They're not trying to help people. And it's good to have them gone. And I hope it stays that way.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican, but I'm not a Democrat. And so I try not to look at this through a partisan lens. I look at this through a public service lens always, and problem solving and what's better for the country. And I'm not comfortable with party politics and Maine, where I live, it's kind of like that. It's kind of Maine is always sort of a bunch of independents and try and stay away from what we consider that the foul waters of partisanship, but nonetheless, things happen up here as well in that regard. But I just say that so that I'm not just a partisan saying we've got to bring back the democratic way of life and so on. For me, it's all about serving the country and what's best for people.
Yeah. Judy Burlfine, do you think that question was answered about the policy initiative in the reconciliation to affect fossil fuel use? You're saying, Joel, that they just have to keep it in the ground. They have to stop leasing.
Yeah.
It came from Douglas. I'll let him respond. Yeah, I wanted to thank you, first of all, since I had a chance to do that. I am so grateful for your courage in speaking up and keeping truth alive.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Yes, I'm terribly grateful. You give me courage too. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. That means a lot. Appreciate it.
That's why I invited him, to give us courage. Scott Lewis in Florida says, I didn't realize there are 4 million people in the Arctic. Can you talk about where they are and how warming is impacting their populations now?
Yeah, so it depends on which part of the Arctic we're talking about, right? So I'm talking about the circumpolar Arctic, and so for example, in Russia, you have entire cities in the Arctic that were built for oil and gas purposes for the most part. But you also have these kind of vast areas where reindeer herders, traditional indigenous reindeer herders, have been for thousands of years. In Northern Europe, in the Nordic countries, you have the reindeer herders, the Sami people who've been there for thousands of years. And of course, as you move west, Greenland, which is Inuit country, and the Inuit people got there by traveling across Canada and Alaska. So the Inuit Circumpolar Commission actually represents the indigenous people all the way across from Greenland to the Bering Strait. And so you have a mix. About 10% of that 4 million are indigenous people practicing very traditional subsistence way of life. And the rest are in these sort of northern cities. For example, Tromsø, Norway is actually a college town in the Arctic. And then we have Svalbard and those areas up there. So it's still, it's not a huge number by global standards, but the effect that climate change is having in the Arctic, it's so severe that in some cases it's the melting sea ice, because they're unable to travel on the ice in the winter, or even on rivers. Rivers become roads in the winter, and they're unable to safely do that. So hunting and subsistence practices are impacted. The species are moving in unpredictable ways, so they may not find, for example, a bearded seal or whatever or a walrus or whatever it is they usually would be catching at a certain time of year. And of course, the permafrost thaw is making things unstable in the summer. If you can imagine, about a quarter of the northern hemisphere is on permafrost, in some amount of permafrost. And if you can imagine the ground thawing out from under your feet and turning to mush, it's sort of like living on an earthquake, in my view. You just can't trust the ground beneath your feet. So infrastructure is heavily impacted, roads and runways, and there's just, sometimes you can't get supplies into a village now, even in the big cities. In Russia, of course, 80%, I think, of their natural gas infrastructure is on permafrost. So they're looking at just, hundreds of billions of, I think they're talking about maybe like $3 trillion in impacts just for the Russian economy alone from thawing permafrost. So that's a big one. And of course, all these things affect us as well. The melting Greenland ice cap. There's an awful lot of water locked up there, and the record melts, the rapidity of the melts are pretty distressing. So, but for the people that live up there, it's the disruptions in their way of life, in cultural practices that have been going on for thousands of years, in subsistence practices that allow them to live up there in a very harsh environment, and then the infrastructure, the ability to live safely. Now COVID kind of tore through the Arctic and exposed a lot of these weaknesses and this sort of lack of resilience in the region. And we learned an awful lot from COVID about the importance of, for example, broadband connectivity in the Arctic. If you all of a sudden school is online and your healthcare is online, you need to have internet. And they don't in many places in the Arctic. So, the thawing permafrost and melting ice, they affect all these other things and make it really expensive to try and put that up there. So, yeah, it's a tough place to live now. And the irony is that these are all developed countries. These are not, USAID is not going to help them out. This is the US and Canada, Russia and so on, Nordic countries.
We have a lot more good questions. And not enough time. We're wondering if we can send you a couple of them.
Oh, of course.
but I want to ask if you can give a quick question to why hasn't Louise Lipsy is asking, why hasn't Biden canceled line 3?
I wish I had a quick answer to that. I don't know.
I don't know. That's the quick answer.
Yeah, that's what I've got for you. I don't know, and it's frustrating. And I these are the places where I think politics shouldn't be, but they are, and it's politics, and I don't know any more about it than that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Joel. It's great to finally meet you in person
Yeah.
on Zoom. And thank you very much for your ethical and courageous work. And keep the faith, keep up the good work.
Well, thanks, Diana. I mean, you guys are inspiring. So thanks for all that you're doing. As a group, you have so many voices, and that means a lot. And so keep the music playing. And thanks so much for having me on. I loved it.
Yeah, terrific. Thank you. And happy holidays.
And to you. Yes. Hineni.
There you go.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
A pleasure. Bye.
All right. So Chana is going to round that out with which song?
So after I was hearing the speaker, I decided to switch my song because I thought this really highlighted what he was talking about in his work. And I could share my screen and share the lyrics with everybody. It's a good kind of sing along. But I also could just, sure. Do you want, does that work for you?
Sure.
Okay.
Does that work?
It's written kind of as a song sheet. So let me
I think we're
going to go a little over time, people. So I hope you don't mind. It's a little bit different of a meeting. More of a celebration.
All right. Let's see. You can tell me. This is my song leader person, not my performer. So I'm trying to facilitate a group singing experience, but it kind of came about at the last minute because it was born of inspiration of his work. So you can tell me. So do I have screen sharing capability right now?
You do.
Okay, great. So I'm going to pull this up. And you might not be able to see all of it, but you'll see the chorus this is written by my friend, Emily Joy Goldberg, who's Jewish and Unitarian. And there are, I guess, a bunch of Unitarian principles. And she wrote a song for each one of them. And this one was about care for the natural world. So it's called Let It Run. I walked down to the river, set my eyes upon the bank, sought to lift my spirits, but my heart sank. This water is poisoned, keep out its scent. I turned away, I bowed my head. That river isn't yours, that river isn't mine. It's been running here such a long, long time. If we let it run, if we handle it with care, we will serve it well. Make this our prayer. All right, administrator, you can mute all of us except me.
Can you mute Linda's phone?
What's going on?
Okay, and so the chorus, I'm going to teach you, you can all sing along from your homes, but while muted, is let it run, let it run, run forever, let it run. It's at the bottom of the page. Question, song leading question. Is it useful to have the lyrics, or do you want me to just put the lyrics away and I'll sing for you and you'll see me? Lyrics away?
You.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, but you saw the lyrics, so you know what the story is.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Now I have to pull out the lyrics for myself. Thank you all for rolling with this. This is just the nature of inspiration. Boy,
we roll with the punches.
That's great. And wow, his stories were just So
Yeah.
powerful. So I thought this song worked for that. Okay. I walked up to the mountain, set my sight upon the top. A big red sign told me to stop. The top of this mountain will be blown away to burn some coal for one more day. That mountain isn't yours. That mountain isn't mine. It's been growing there such a long, long time. If we let it grow, if we handle it with care, we will serve it well. Make this our prayer. So this one's let it grow. Let it grow. Let it grow. Grow forever. Grow forever. Let it grow. I walked into the forest, set my eyes upon the trees. I should have. Oh, wait. Sorry. I got to get my lyrics. It's been a while since I sang this. It's the forest. Sorry. To the forest, set my feet upon the path. There we go. I walked into the forest, set my feet upon the path. I should have known it would not last. The sign said these trees will be cut down. I fell on my knees on that sacred ground. That forest isn't yours. That forest isn't mine. It's been growing there such a long, long time. If we let it grow, if we handle it with care, we will serve it well. Make this our prayer. Let it grow. Let it grow. Let it grow. Grow forever. Let it grow. And the mountain was rise. Let it rise. Let it rise. Rise forever. Let it rise. And the river was run. Let it run. Let it run. Run forever. Let it run. Thank you for bearing with me. I love that song,
That's
but I
okay. Thank
forgot
you.
it.
Thank you. It's good to hear you try out some of your new music.
Thank you.
So I want to call back Dee Herman and Ed Kopp. We have a few paper plate awards for a couple of unsung heroes.
Well, I'd like to first make a special award to in Zoom production to whoever cut me off when I was unintentionally singing along with Hannah. I couldn't resist it and I didn't know I was on.
The
But
singing
our
was
next-
great.
Oh, and we have one more group, right?
Well, we have just a little bit more. I'll go as fast as I can, but I can't ignore California.
Yeah.
So let's look at the plates for California now, starting with Louise Lipsy, who is a founder of our efforts in Northern California. And then turning to Southern California, we've got founders.
Wait a minute.
While you're doing that,
The
Dee, I just
envelope,
want to
please.
mention that, here we go. Okay, founders Judy Burlfine, next comes.
Moriarty.
Before Maury, we've got Judy's husband.
Douglas.
Douglas gets a special award for his great PowerPoint presentations on our monthly actions. And now going beyond the family, We've got Maury Edelman, another founder in California, and Lisa Friedman, a citizen lobbyist, and Carol Singer, aggregator and citizen lobbyist. And we wanted to put California in at this point because if California were a country, it would have the 5th largest economy in the world. And it has 53 members of the House of Representatives. It can change the world, and we're very proud of our California delegation.
Yeah.
Now, we also have people who do things besides writing letters for us. I'd like to turn, or in addition to, I'd like to turn to those now. The first is to the indispensable Mimi Brody, who is our behind the scenes helper. One of the things she does is helps us keep our lists of congressional staff up to date, which is indispensable because those relationships that we form with our letters are the backbone of what we're up to. Next,
Mimi wave.
Lisa Rappaport, artist extraordinaire, and she has applied some of that wonderful graphic talent to our action alerts as well as our flyers and our posters when needed. And it's beautiful work. So applause there as well.
Yeah.
The next plate. Well, actually, before we get to these two extraordinary people, I want to just recognize Zeev Stern. Do we have his plate ready?
Sorry, I don't have one for Z.
Okay, well, Zeev is going to get a plate, and Zeev has done extraordinary work for us, sending the letters into Congress and setting up a remarkable system for processing hundreds of letters at a time that's been indispensable. So Zeev, you will get your plate in the mail. And now we can go on to.
Well, I want to thank the steering committee. I want to say thank you very much to our very important, it's a small steering committee, but very effective, of Ed Kopp, Dee Herman, Joelle Novi, Amy Finkelstein-Dick, and J.R. Rich and Ann Bennett previously. And we want to thank them tremendously for your devotion and commitment and vision and energy.
Yeah, we know, but Deborah, you're just trying to put off these next two plates.
Yeah, there you go.
Which are really important. Mirala Goldsmith, founder and encourager-in-chief, and Deborah Lynn, co-founder and expert facilitator.
Thank
I
you.
see some hearts appearing on the screen.
You should unmute. Everybody should unmute and give everybody a big hand of applause. Yay. Thank you so much. That was great. Oh, that's wonderful.
I'm really looking forward to next year when we can give Hannah one of our awards.
Yeah, but I really want to say we especially have to recognize Mirala Goldsmith for the genius, and yeah, I know she never takes, she doesn't like to take credit, the genius and force behind the Jewish Earth Alliance. And I know that she is a mentor to all of you on this call and just keeps us going. And sometimes I'm afraid to pick up the phone when I see it's Mirala because she has 5 or 10 new ideas to work on. So it's like, okay, but just the ideas just keep coming. So thank you, Mirala, for being a wonderful teacher and role model. All right. So if you would like to stay and make calls to congressional representatives, Mirala is going to lead that right after we finish. And I want to thank Hannah Rothman for her beautiful music. And she's going to sing a wonderful song, Gates of Justice, which is a perfect song to end with. And thank you all for coming tonight. This was really fun, as well as moving and gratifying. And thank you for the plate. Thank you so much, Dee, for the plate. Beautiful. And if you want to get up and dance, everybody, just go for it. Go right ahead.
Yes. I want to say a couple super quick things. One, thank you for having me. It is such an honor to be here because I have 3 young children who are deeply concerned about climate change. And as a Jewish environmentalist, I've always loved this work and held it very close. And my partner and I met working for the Teva Learning Center doing Jewish environmental education. And Muriel and I have met in all those different worlds. And right now, I don't always have the time and energy to do the work that you're doing. So the fact that I can add music to this is a huge blessing to me. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Rabbi Devorah Lynn and Mirala for kind of bringing me into this and making me feel like I belong here, which I do. But I just also want to say that the work that you're doing is making a better world for my children. And they came in a couple times when I was singing. They said, Ema, were you singing this song? Were you singing that song? And so
Yeah, I
on
think,
behalf of,
historically, we have to recognize how important music has been to the major movements in the world.
Mhm.
And, so I want to hear more of your music for this movement.
Great. Well, this song is called Gates of Justice. It comes from Psalm 118, which is, you may know it as like, it's Pitchu li Sharei Tzedek. A lot of times it's sung very calmly. Pitchu li Sharei. So I wrote this song thinking, what would a song sound like if it were like we are actually demanding, because that's what it is. Pitchu li is like demanding to God, open the gates of justice for me. So I did it. I did the song in a more of a demanding justice kind of way. Pitchu li Sharei Tzedek avobam odeya. Pitchu li, open up, Sharei Tzedek, the gates of justice, avobam. I will enter, I will praise your name. And of course, Emma Goldman said, if I can't dance, it's not my revolution. So we have our Jewish radical revolutionaries who knew how important it is to dance our way to the revolution. Well, there's a long list of things gone wrong, too many to fit in one song. The list goes on and on and on and on. Well, it's enough to make you constantly stressed. Can't see a way out of this mess. Enough to make you walk away. But something inside's just got to say, this is what you do. We don't have to beg or plead or even wring our hands. We can organize, mobilize, make demands. The world we want is ours to create. So let's do it now, no time to wait. Pitchu li, open up, Sharei Tzedek, the gates of justice, avobam. I will enter, Udeya, I will praise your name. Pitchu li, open up, Sharei Tzedek, the gates of justice, avobam. I will enter, I will praise your name. And Ed, I think it was great that you were singing. It's really just Zoom, because Zoom makes it like, Zoom can't tell who's the lead voice and Zoom can't make us all sing at the same time. So, Bimhera, very soon may we all be able to sing again. Many protests, many rooms, all that. So no one should ever feel shame about singing out. So I support all of us singing out. You see, we don't have to finish it all. Every little bit matters, no matter how small. We don't need to run away or build a wall. When we rise up together, we all stand tall. We don't have to beg or plead or even wring our hands. We can organize, mobilize, make demands. The world we want is ours to create. So let's do it now, no time to wait. Pitchu li, open up, Sharei Tzedek, the gates of justice, avovam. I will enter, Udeya, I will praise your name. Open up the gates, open up the gates, open up the gates, open up the gates of justice. And the Jewish Earth Alliance is doing so much good. And the world will take notice like it should. Open up the gates of justice. I will enter. I will praise your name.
All right. All right, Hannah. Here, everybody put your hands on the side of the frames and touch each other. And bless each other. All right. Happy Hanukkah, everybody. Have a thankful Thanksgiving.
Anna, check your chat for a message.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. It's a small world, isn't it?
What's that? Oh, and you have a YouTube channel, right?
I do.
Yeah, I just have check out Hannah's YouTube channel, and
Yeah,
blessings to
thank you.
everyone, and may you have a
Thank you.
safe and fulfilling Thanksgiving and an enlightening Hanukkah. And it was great seeing you all. Keep up the good work, keep up the faith. And if you want to stay to call congressional representatives, now's the time. Just stay on, okay? So Mirala, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. Hannah, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You are a total inspiration and a force. I loved that.
I
Like,
want everyone to know that when I had to have 4 teeth pulled, I listened to Hannah Rothman and I didn't notice a thing. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen. Let's see with the number to call. Here's what we're going to do. You go to that bit.ly. Wait, I should have typed that in the chat. bit.ly, right? Okay, this is a calling tool from Dayenu, and you just go in there and it's gonna you sign up and your phone will call you back, connect you to your member of Congress, and it tells you exactly what to say. Basically, we want them to pass Build Back Better with the $555 billion for climate solutions. And then you can give whatever personal message you want. So let me see if I can put that in the chat for you.
All right.
Yeah, let's see. Stop share.